The UK and France have agreed to go further and faster on tackling illegal immigration following a meeting between the Home Secretary James Cleverly and the French Interior Minister.
You may feel like you've heard that before. Well, Cleverly's also going to be grilled by MPs later today at the Home Affairs Select Committee, as a new study predicts that net migration could see the country's population reach 70 million by 2026.
Joining us now is our chief political commentator, Peter Cardwell, and former Home Office advisor, Claire Pearsall. Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
Claire,
hello.
Good morning. Is this going to have an effect, this entente cordiale?
Well, we hope so. Of course, there's been so much cooperation between the British and the French for such a long time. 36% reduction in boats, but of course they haven't stopped the boats. And that was the policy, stop the boats, not reduce the boats, stop the boats. That hasn't happened. James Cleverly saying, look, this is greater, further, faster, deeper cooperation that's happening. But the fact is we are giving the French an awful lot of money, hundreds of millions of pounds. And yes, it has been reduced. The weather has helped, of course, as well. It hasn't all been the efforts of the UK and French, especially. There have been things like barriers put up. There have been tackling this kind of taxi service, ferry taxis essentially, where people pay by demand and then take a boat at a certain time. That has been cracked down upon, but really this is a massive issue. It's not going to go away, and both in illegal immigration and, as you mentioned there, legal migration, we're seeing the population go up. We're hearing about 70 million by 2026. You have 74 million by 2036. It'll be very interesting what the Select Committee says to James Cleverly later today. It's his first time as Home Secretary that he's up against this grilling from MP, so we'll see what happens there at 9:30.
Claire, I just want to look at what James Cleverly said yesterday. He said, speaking of the French, their commitment is exemplary, their results are impressive. Would you agree?
Well, he's never going to go over there and say you need to try harder. We've given an awful lot of money, as Peter just said, over to the French. And it's nice that they seem to be able to control the weather in the winter, because that is going to lead to the reduction in small boat crossings. The language was very interesting. James Cleverly wants to build that relationship, but to say that you want to expedite something which was actually agreed upon in March of 2023, it's not really that quick, is it? Because here we are now, 10 months on, still not really there, are we? But you are always going to be hoist by your own petard if you're going to say, stop the boats. It isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Is this sort of backslapping and grandstanding at the same time, making a political point, following on from the noise about Rwanda over the last couple of days? They're trying to shift the dial in terms of public perception, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you always need to have a working relationship with France, given that we aren't that far away from them. The coastline isn't that far, 26 miles of water. You're going to have a good relationship. But it's got to be a meaningful one. You can't just keep piling money over to say, here's some more drones, here are some more beach buggies. You need to work a little bit harder. You need to actually make that happen, and you need to see some kind of difference in the amount of people heading towards the French coastline. So it's just a bit further back from Calais that you need to be looking.
And Macron himself has been under a lot of pressure internally in France, not just from the farmers, but from others who want immigration to get under control in France. So there's a lot of that aspect of things as well with the French Immigration Minister, the Interior Minister.
This is a European problem as much
as
it
is a European problem.
Yeah.
And as the UK government will tell you over and over again, it's so much worse in other parts of the UK, like France, like Italy, for example, and we're doing slightly better than other nations. But still, for Macron, he has not had the sorrows to seek on this particular issue over the last number of months.
Can we talk about legal migration? The figures coming out today from the ONS are quite stark, Peter. Talk us through what they are and the challenge this poses for the Prime Minister, because I think the Conservatives are a bit confused. Do they want more migration or less?
Well, it's interesting in terms of the statistics, as you mentioned. The Office of National Statistics saying that the population may well get to 70 million by 2026, 74 million by 2036. We saw record levels of migration. It's not just about migration, it's about net migration as well. People in, people out, and 745 million in 2023. That's down a little bit for the last period for which statistics are available, but at the same time, the population is rising. There are pressures on services. There's no doubt about that. So many people know when you try to get a GP's appointment, school places, housing, there is that pressure. But at the same time, it's a question for the government in terms of what is desirable, because there are so many areas of the economy where we do need people. The care system, for example, is, we need people to take those jobs. But how targeted can this be? It's a big in-tray issue for Labour as well. If they're to come in November after well, I think the election will be in the middle of November. If they're to come in then, well, what do they actually do about this? What should the policy be?
This is a paradox, isn't it, Claire? Our economy is dependent on throwing more people. If we want our economy to grow, we need more people in the country. That seems to be the sort of, it's been described as the car wash economy. We haven't got a great amount of productivity, but the more people who come into the country, the more that generates economic activity. But then that creates that pressure, as Peter was saying, on the public services and housing. How are we going to square that circle?
Yeah, come on, Claire.
It is, yeah, should I just come on and answer for you now? I think it's really difficult because it is also used as a bit of an excuse. When you look at the pressures on housing, people will put that down to the number, net migration figures, say there are too many people coming. We need to build more houses. It's quite simple. But the stark reality is that we have enormous black hole in staffing levels within the NHS and the care sector, but also in the agricultural sector. And we need those people to come in. So to have that really scary headline figure, I don't always think is helpful when you're looking at a conversation about migration figures. They will go up and they will go down. People will leave. Students will leave at the end of their course. And also you've got net migration figures with those schemes with Ukraine, with Hong Kong and with the sort of Syrians and Afghans. So you need to look at it properly as a whole. You can't just take one headline figure and use it as a scaremonger. Now, we do have to look at the infrastructure we've got, which isn't great. And I think everybody struggles at the moment with public services, public transport, but I don't think you can all put it down to migration figures.